I never imagined that my quiet life would spiral into chaos in a single evening. My name is Ethan, 38, and for 15 years, I thought I knew everything about my marriage. My wife, Samantha, was a woman I had built my life with. The laughter, the late-night talks, the small moments that stitched our lives together. But all of that certainty shattered when I noticed the subtle changes first. Small enough to dismiss, yet persistent. Her phone would buzz late at night, and she'd slip out of the room to answer it. Her once warm smile seemed forced, fleeting, like it had an expiration date I hadn't noticed. I chalked it up to stress at first. After all, she worked in marketing, and her job was demanding. Then came the day I found a text I wasn't supposed to see. It wasn't just flirtatious. It was intimate, something that belonged to a secret I wasn't meant to know. My heart sank, but I didn't react immediately. I sat at the edge of our bed, staring at the screen, trying to rationalize it. Maybe it was just emotional support from a friend. Maybe I was overreacting. I kept telling myself these lies while a cold knot settled in my stomach. That night, she came home, tired as usual, and I couldn't even look her in the eye. Dinner passed in silence, the hum of the refrigerator louder than our conversation had been in months. A week later, I found myself standing outside a coffee shop across from a man I had never met before. His name was Derek, and he was waiting, casually leaning against a car like he owned the sidewalk. His presence immediately triggered a surge of anger inside me. Not at him yet, but at the situation. He had the audacity to think he could step into my life, into my marriage, without a single consequence. I approached cautiously, my fists clenched inside my jacket pockets. "Ethan?" he asked, attempting a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Yes," I said quietly, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside. He didn't recognize the calm before the storm. Derek assumed the startled husband would shrink, apologize, or even threaten. But I had rehearsed nothing. All I had was the quiet, boiling control that had been simmering for weeks. "Listen, man," he started, trying to sound casual. "I don't want any trouble. I care about her. That's all." I looked at him, studying the arrogance that he wore like armor. He had no idea who he was talking to. Care about her? I repeated slowly, each word deliberate. "You don't know her. You don't know me. And you certainly don't know what loyalty looks like." His smile faltered. "Hey, No, you don't get to talk over this," I said, my voice firm but calm. "You've inserted yourself into a marriage without knowing anything about the years we built together. You think it's a game? That you can just swoop in and take what's mine?" Derek shifted uncomfortably, glancing around the parking lot, as if the world itself might intervene. He underestimated the quiet kind of fury that's more dangerous than shouting. I remembered all the nights I had stayed late at work, all the times I had set aside my own desires to support Samantha, all the trust one had given that had been broken. "I've known for weeks," I continued, lowering my voice. "Weeks of texts, calls, and the little things that made me question my life, my marriage, and my sanity. And you," I pointed at him without raising my hand aggressively, "you've been nothing but a pawn in someone else's betrayal." His attempt at bravado weakened. He tried again. "Look, it's not like that. She—" "Stop." I cut in, sharper this time. "You don't get to defend her. You don't get to explain her choices. You've made assumptions about our lives without knowing a single thing. That stops now." The tension in the air was thick enough to choke on. People passing by gave us wary glances, sensing the storm that had nothing to do with them. Derek's posture was no longer confident. It was defensive. I could see in his eyes the realization that he was outmatched, not with fists, not with words, but with the quiet certainty of someone who refuses to be manipulated. "I suggest you leave," I said finally, voice low, almost calm, though every fiber of me was coiled like a spring. "Leave and never involve yourself in my life again. Because trust me, if you think you're walking away unscathed, you're mistaken. You just don't know who you're dealing with." For a long moment, he didn't move. Then, finally, he nodded, muttered something inaudible, and got into his car. I watched until the taillights disappeared around the corner. Walking back into my house, I felt a mix of exhaustion and clarity. Samantha was upstairs, oblivious to the confrontation. to the storm I had just quelled outside. She had no idea that the quiet man she had underestimated could wield his own form of power, calm, deliberate, and devastating. That night, I lay in bed, the weight of betrayal pressing down. But for the first time, I didn't feel completely powerless. I had confronted the intruder, drawn my line, and made it clear that my dignity wasn't negotiable. But the battle was far from over. There was still Samantha, still the marriage that had been fractured long before Derek arrived. And I knew that the next moves would define not just the future of my relationship, but the future of me. The next morning, the air in the house felt different. Heavy, expectant, like it knew the confrontation outside had shifted something fundamental. I moved through the kitchen quietly, making my coffee, my mind replaying Derek's defeated look over and over. It wasn't satisfaction I felt. It was clarity. I had drawn the line. But Samantha's role in all of this was far from passive. She had chosen deception, and now the truth was inevitable. I found her in the living room, scrolling on her phone like nothing had happened. My heart clenched at the casualness of it, but I stayed calm. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I simply sat across from her at the table and let the silence stretch, long enough for her to notice it. Finally, she looked up. "Ethan, what's wrong?" Her voice carried a mixture of curiosity and an almost imperceptible fear, as if she sensed the storm I had just weathered. "I know," I said softly. "I know about Derek." Her eyes widened just slightly, betraying a flicker of panic. She tried to smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Ethan, Don't try to explain," I interrupted, holding up a hand. "I've seen enough lies and excuses to last a lifetime. Right now, I just need honesty. Can you give me that?" She hesitated, and that pause said more than words ever could. Then, finally, she spoke, voice barely above a whisper. Yes, I've been seeing him." The words hit like a hammer, but I kept my composure. My heart pounded, rage threatening to spill over. But I remembered Derek's look yesterday, the fear in his eyes when he realized I was an easy target. I could channel this, not through anger, but through decisive clarity. "I need you to understand something. Samantha," I said, voice firm. "This isn't just about Derek. This is about everything you've done to us. To me. I gave you 15 years, loyalty, love, every day trying to make this marriage work. And what did I get in return? Deception, betrayal, a secret life that you thought I'd never uncover." Tears formed in her eyes now, unpracticed and genuine. I don't know what came over me. I thought I was unhappy, and he made me feel alive again." "Stop," I said sharply. "Do not use him as an excuse for your choices. You made them. He didn't force you. He wasn't standing over you with a gun, compelling you to lie and cheat. That was entirely your decision." She lowered her gaze, shame weighing her down. For a moment, I wondered if I could forgive her. Part of me wanted to scream, to break everything around me. But another part, calm, calculating, aware, told me that anger alone wouldn't reclaim my life. Control would. Integrity would. "I've thought long and hard about this," I continued, "and I've decided something. You have choices. You can try to repair this, if you truly want to. But understand, trust, once broken like this, cannot simply be rebuilt. It has to be earned. And any step toward forgiveness will be measured, deliberate, and conditional." Her voice trembled. "Ethan, I want to fix this. I made a mistake." I shook my head slowly. "Mistake? This wasn't a mistake. This was a choice you made repeatedly. Every lie, every secret message, every stolen moment. It was a conscious decision. And for me, I'm done being passive in my own life." She flinched at the finality in my tone. I could see her processing it, realizing that the quiet man she thought she could manipulate was fully awake, fully aware, and fully unwilling to let her continue unchecked. "I want out," I said, "but not through shouting, threats, or chaos. We're going to handle this with clarity, transparency, and yes, there will be consequences. I won't be passive anymore. Samantha, you've tested the limits, and I've reached them. I'm reclaiming my life." Her tears fell freely now, not just from guilt, but from fear. The fear of finally seeing me, Not the man she thought she could control, but the one I always was, the one who had tolerated far too much and learned exactly when enough is enough. In that moment, I realized the power wasn't in confrontation or in fury. The real power lay in calmness, in clarity, in walking a path defined by self-respect. Derek had been intimidated not because I yelled or fought, but because I was steady, unwavering, and unapologetically in control of my life. And Samantha, she finally understood fully and irrevocably that she could no longer hide behind deception, manipulation, or charm. The remainder of the day passed in tense silence. She packed her things, her movements clumsy and hesitant, and left without a word beyond the murmured apologies she couldn't quite force herself to complete. I didn't celebrate. I didn't revel in victory. Instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: lightness, relief, freedom. By the time night fell, the house was mine again, quiet but no longer oppressive. The betrayal had been confronted, the intruder neutralized, and the deception exposed. And in the silence that followed, I understood something crucial. Life does not always give closure through drama, confrontation, or revenge. Sometimes, the most profound power is simply knowing your worth, standing your ground, and refusing to be diminished by the choices of others. For the first time in a long while, I slept through the night without the gnawing weight of lies pressing on my chest. The storm had passed, and though the damage remained, I had emerged intact, stronger, wiser, unbroken. And I knew one thing with absolute certainty: no one, neither a manipulative lover nor a deceitful spouse, would ever underestimate me again.